Well, it was an emotional last working day for Chief Justice CJI Chandrachud, who retired on the 10th of November. He will be retiring on the 10th of November. Justice Chandrachud got emotional and could be seen wiping tears as Justice Narasimha hailed his extraordinary ability as a lawyer. Justice Rishikesh Roy also had words of praise for Justice Chandrachud, who also happened to be his classmate. Chandrachud's 2 years tenure as the Chief Justice has been the longest in the last 12 years. The Supreme Court Bar Association held a farewell ceremony for the Chief Justice. His successor, Justice Sanjeev Khanna, led the tributes, after which an emotional Justice Chandrachud reflected on his career.
Chief, you clearly combine the three: genius, brilliance, and energy. As the Chief prepares to demit the office soon, there will be undoubtedly a vacuum, both in the institution and for someone who had worked and lived with such dedication. Of course, the Chief will be missed by us. We'll miss your presence physically, but you'll always be felt. You'll be amongst us as one of us.
One of the lessons which I learned of trying to reach out to people in areas which make a difference to their lives. So the last 24 years of being a judge have been filled with challenges. They've been filled with triumphs. They have been filled with personal tragedies. They've been filled with unlimited personal happiness.
And well, joining me now to discuss the legacy of Justice CJI Chandrachud is Senior Advocate, former Attorney General, one of the most senior members of the bar, Mr. Mukul Rohatgi. Mr. Rohatgi, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. First question, we were there at the ceremonial bench when you appeared before Justice Chandrachud, when you reminded him how you were reminiscing that you were both additional Solicitor Generals together, how you've seen him grow from an advocate into a judge, travelling from the bar to the bench, then to the CJI's office. Just your assessment, how would you look back at his legacy? And I ask you this in context of many people, many lawyers we spoke to who are saying, great administrator, great intellectual of our times, judge perhaps did not meet expectations. What would your assessment be?
Well, I would not agree with them. My personal assessment is that I have not seen a more hardworking Chief Justice of India in the last 46 years of my being at the bar. He took up cudgels to sit on every larger bench of 5 judges, 7 judges, 9 judges, where cases were languishing for 20 years. And he decided them with great erudition and hard work, starting from, to name a few, whether it is Ayodhya, whether it is Aadhaar, whether it is 370, whether it was Aligarh Muslim University today, whether it was tax on minerals, fight between state and center, or tax on alcohol, and the like. So I think the last 2 years, he has given a direction, and obviously it is something to be followed by future Chief Justices to try and ensure that these big matters which are pending are decided, because a large number of smaller matters are pending based on these larger bench cases in different high courts, etc., etc.
Sure.
I may also tell you that
Indeed,
I have seen him grow from a lawyer when I knew him in 99 or 2000. Then he adorned a seat at the Bombay High Court. There also he was equally hardworking. So he has left a legacy of hard work, namely that there is no exception to burning the midnight oil. And he has left behind very large boots. It's not so easy to fill up those boots. His mannerisms in court were impeccable.
Sure.
I have never seen him get angry or shout or throw files. He always enjoyed youngsters coming up. He gave them great encouragement. So all this, points in one direction, namely of erudition, excellence, and hard work, etc.
Sure. Let me come in with one of the criticisms that was raised in a show that we did a few moments earlier. In the show, the criticism that was raised is that when you look at Article 370 and Ayodhya, two very complex, volatile judgments which expectedly had brickbats, had also those who welcomed this judgment. These judgments, however, when seen in context of some of the actions of Justice Chandrachud outside of court, which is hosting the Prime Minister, which is making references to seeking divine intervention ahead of delivering the Ayodhya verdict. This, some say, leaves a sour taste in the mouth, raises questions on the conduct of the Chief Justice. Is that fair criticism or a case of unreasonable expectations? What would your assessment be?
See, my personal view is that these two so-called discordant notes have been blown out of proportion. Now, the fact that there was a puja at his house and the Prime Minister came, there are two views. One, that puja is personal and not to be kind of socialized with others. The other is that two heads of two pillars of society under the Constitution meet and exchange pleasantries. So, I mean, what's the great problem in that? And as you know, the Chief Justice and the Prime Minister and the Leader of Opposition meet regularly for various selection committees, whether it be Lokpal, whether it be others. So, some amount of civility is maintained between the branches. That does not mean that, one is angling to get some personal favors, etc., etc. As a matter of fact, Chief Justice of the High Court of a state has to have regular meeting with the Chief Minister so as to get funds for infrastructure, to exhort the Chief Minister that we need funds for our infrastructure, for our judges, etc., etc. So I don't think there's anything wrong. So it's not a case of a misdemeanor in the sense that suppose he was trying a case which involved the Prime Minister himself before him, and then he goes and meets at a particular event at his house, somebody may raise eyebrows, but there's no such thing. It's not that Prime Minister was a personal litigant or some important issue like that. So I think it's kind of blowing it beyond proportion. But as far as my personal view is concerned, I would say that the Chief Justice should not have made a comment on the divine intervention in a case involving the divinity itself. See, I mean, if he's a God-fearing man, so am I. So are most Hindus. We believe in God. So obviously, every day we think about God and we thank Him for, our problems and our travails in daily life, and we cross them. And we pray to God that we should not fall on bad times and, bad health and all that.
Sure.
So that is fine. Now, if you are doing a case of divinity and something did dawn upon him, well, then he should have kept it personal rather than, coming out with it. But I don't think it is correct to read too much into it. If you see a balance, one or two indiscretions here or there, which are also debatable. They are not indiscretions, bearing on corruption. These are some things here and there. If you put it in a scale, if it is 98 on one side and 2 on one side, where the scale tips. That's the way I would look at it.
So in aggregate, you would argue that he's taken the jurisprudence forward, which brings me to my final question, Mr. Rohatgi. We're running out of time. But one final question. This also feels like an end of an era in terms of some of the administrative measures he took. We're talking about virtual hearings. We're talking about live streaming. We're talking about use of data, use of AI in terms of making judiciary more accessible. Do you feel that this could be one justiceship which could be looked back upon as which has helped transcend to a digital age of judiciary?
I think so. He has to be praised for what he did. You see, we came out of COVID. During the COVID times, we had virtual hearings when he was not the Chief Justice. That was the nascent stage. We faced a lot of problems on virtual hearings. Sometimes we were speaking, but the court could not hear. Or the court is speaking, we could not hear. Our photo was not coming. There was a time lag in speaking. But when he took it up, things have improved so much that today, to do a virtual hearing from anywhere in the world, I may tell you, I've done it from London, Last week I did it from Dubai. From anywhere in the world, the hearing systems are absolutely perfect and impeccable, and full marks go only to the Chief Justice. And one more thing I must tell you. You know, when you are arguing in court and you want to show a particular law, say the Constitution. Now, normally you would ask the Chief Justice, now open the Constitution, either physically or on the screen, and then look at such and such article. Now, he had made a system in his court that the moment you said, let's say, Article 14 of the Constitution, immediately the courtmaster would type, and there was a screen in the court in front of the lawyer, not your own screen, a screen of the court, where immediately Article 14 would come on the screen and you could read it from the screen. Things like that, I think, full marks to him. And as I said earlier, these are big boots to fill. So I hope Justice Khanna also follows in the same direction, because please understand, in these days of extreme pollution, imagine 5,000 cars coming to the Supreme Court every day with no space and pollution.
Right, Mr. Rohatgi.
People are able to do it from their own homes at least 50% of the times. It will be a great boon to the society, to court, to pollution. So that, I think, must be spearheaded further and further by the incoming Chief Justices.
Right, Mr. Rohatgi, thank you so much for joining us. You're right in pointing out big boots to fill. Justice Khanna takes over and takes charge as the 51st CJI Chief Justice of India on November 11th. But before we wrap,